Well, basically, one of the reasons we agreed to go to Jasper in the first place, and one of the questions I asked was, how are race relations there? Knowing that it was about 50%.
The population was 55, 65 or something.
Well, there was about
almost equal.
45% African American, 45% white Anglo, and then the rest of it was split between Hispanic and there were actually some Mid-Eastern and Oriental.
In '98?
In the early 90s to 98, there was some. I don't think that probably changed appreciably since then. There hasn't been any what I would call significant growth population-wise. If I remember the statistics, the recent population count, it's grown some. I suspect that the shadow of that has affected that to some degree. But also,
you mean negatively?
Okay. I think probably to some degree it would have to, because they expected and worked at trying to draw industry and jobs in there. They've succeeded in doing a little of that, but not a lot. And whatever has been done, I think, has been offset by a decline in the timber related industry.
We're going to get into that in just a second, too, in more depth. What about psychologically and sociologically?
Psychologically and sociologically, I think what Julie referred to a little while ago, most people there want this to go away. They don't want to be reminded of it. They don't want to be known as the town where this happened. And I told them at the time, and I wrote at the time, Jasper will forever be known, just like Dallas was known as a place where JFK was assassinated. People remember that, and when you say Dallas, people in the other parts of the world, of the United States, that's the first thing to think of. And I think if you say Jasper somewhere, that's going to be the first thing people think about. It's a stigma that's going to be with the town, and they've got to learn to live with that and to deal with it and to overcome it.
Now, talk about Jasper a little bit in '98 before the murder, in terms of who were the leaders in town, what was the makeup, for example, of the school board, of the city council, and those kinds of things.
We had the mayor was black, and I use the term black because in Jasper that really was the terminology that was accepted rather than African American, and I'm not sure why, but that's why I use that term. Not the superintendent, the school board president was black. We had 2 school board members that were black. Is that right?
Yeah, and 2 council.
And 2 city councilmen that were black. It was a very evenly distributed, as far as race, between leadership positions in the community. The director, head of the hospital, was also
and who was
a black
that again?
man.
George's last name. Can't even think of it now.
That's okay. I'll probably have it on this list.
You probably do.
Probably do. And then also the executive director of the Council of Governments.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Very powerful position.
Probably the strongest leader in town.
And his
still
name is
Walter Diggles.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, Deep East Texas Council of Governments.
Right. He's executive director.
Over 12 counties.
Yeah.
Okay. And so would you describe the leadership of Jasper before the murder in '98 as fairly egalitarian? For example, were there also Hispanic representatives on the school board?
There was such a small population. If I remember correctly, and I taught there when we first moved there, we didn't have a bilingual program because no one spoke a different language. I don't think we even had any children that spoke Spanish, and that's changed now, and there's a program now, but it was a very insignificant portion of the population that was Hispanic.
Right.
Okay.
With some doctors that were Asian.
Okay. So. What about churches? Were they...
Which one of the 50 churches in this town of 8,000, you know?
Yeah, I know.
Predominantly Baptist, many Baptists, and very different, I don't know, the different Baptist not denominations, but the
I know.
breakout.
There are a lot of breeds of Baptists.
Exactly. Lots of that.
Mhm.
Methodist, Catholic Church, which was quite small, has grown tremendously. It's a very large church there now.
And who were the leaders in the Ministerial Alliance before the murder?
Before the murder, Reverend John Harden,
Mhm.
Walter Diggles, the executive director of DETCOG, is also a minister, and he was a leader in that.
Jerry Neff.
Dr. Jerry Neff, and the late
Ed Robinson?
Ed
Yeah.
Robinson.
Mm-hmm.
Father Ron.
Father Ron Forsage, the Catholic Church.
Was Black?
No.
No,
Oh, okay.
just part
Just
of
the leaders.
leadership.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But who did I just name? The man at Mount Olive Baptist Church.
Boy, it's a good thing you caught us now. Another year, we won't remember anything. It's fading fast.
I guess the question, the big picture
Harden.
question, was just, was there a racial mix in some sort of egalitarian way? I'll get that word out in a minute.
In
on the
every aspect
Ministerial
of town.
Alliance.
it was.
Every
Yeah.
aspect of
Yeah.
town.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
And what about in the schools, teachers and so forth?
My principal was Black. Probably about half the teachers were Black
Mm-hmm.
in the school where I was. And,
Was that unusual in 1998?
No, I don't think so. It may have been for East Texas. We moved from the Houston area, and of course it wasn't unusual there at all.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think so.
And so, in terms of in 2008, how would you describe the things that we just talked about? 10 years later, was that sort of egalitarian structure still in place
Mhm.
in all those other
Yeah.
places, school board and so forth?
Absolutely.
Yes.
Okay. And then you think Jasper's changed much in the last 3 years, from 2008 to now?
I doubt it. Not
We
as-
don't live there, so it's really hard to
Yeah,
say.
kind of hard to say now, I
Yeah.
would think. Okay.
Not-
Now, this is a tough question. Why do you think James Byrd Jr. was killed, and in such a horrific way?
I think it was a random act by the choosing of him as the victim. He happened to be out walking by himself, and these two guys, three guys, he knew the pickup. He knew the young man who owned the pickup, who ran a theater there,
Mhm.
and
Sean
they were
Berry.
acquainted. Sean Berry.
Mm-hmm.
They were acquainted. He also knew King, and I think had met Russell Brewer. Brewer was not from Jasper. King was. King grew up there. They offered him beer and got him in the truck, and of course drove out on the country road and did their brutal thing. As I say, I think they were out looking for trouble.
Mm-hmm.
They would call it something else, but trouble is a better description. And they were doing it because they were high. And the Brewer and King, of course, had been in prison, and in prison they'd been recruited into a gang that was a white supremacist.
Mm-hmm. Aaron Rice kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I think theirs was Knights of the Confederacy or something was the name of theirs, if I recall.
That's right.
And King had done some writing that came out in all of this investigation that was pretty racist.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty-
Well, he was also covered in racist
Tattoos.
tattoos
Yeah.
all over him.
So I think, as far as the victim, it was a random choice, and I think they had decided. I don't know that they decided to kill somebody, but they wanted to rough somebody up.
Mm-hmm. What about Sean Berry? Was he a rough character? The guy who was driving the truck?
Semi.
Of course, sort of. I'll kind of go back to something that the district attorney at that time referred to him.
Mhm.
Somebody said, well, he just looks like such an innocent-looking young man, and he said, he's a bull rider.
Mm-hmm.
He's mean and he's tough. And
Mhm.
that's what he meant.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's probably true.
He was kind of rough, and so was his brother, who is currently a deputy with the Sheriff's Department in Jasper.
Wow.